I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with honest to God truth, no lies told. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Sam Peterson. He is a passionate entrepreneur and mental health advocate dedicated to transforming the lives of veterans and first responders through cutting edge science backed treatments. As the co founder of Mind Spa and the Patriot Power Up program, he has led the development of innovative protocols that combine ketamine therapy, transcranial magnetic stimulation or TMS, and hyperbaric oxygen therapy or HBOT to heal and rewire the brain. These powerful synergetic treatments target the root cause of TBI, PTSD, depression, and anxiety, offering long lasting relief where traditional methods often fall short. The data gathered from these programs demonstrate their profound impact, not just alleviating symptoms, but fundamentally restoring brain function and improving quality of life. His mission is deeply personal. As a former Army EOD technician, he has faced his own mental health challenges, which drove him to develop programs that go beyond symptom management to true neurological healing. He believes in the power of community, cutting edge science, and personalized care to create lasting change and remains committed to revolutionizing mental health treatment for veterans and first responders. So, Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I can't wait to hear this story and hear your company. So, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, Noah.
Can I get like a little bit more, kind of share a little bit more about yourself and a little bit about
Yeah.
how this kind of program and how this company came to be?
Yeah. I was an Army bomb technician, so I was the guy in the big green suit that went down and cut wires on IEDs. Got I've got three tours to Afghanistan under my belt, two as an Army bomb technician, and one as a contractor. And man, when I was leaving the Army, it was a really big struggle. There's so much identity that goes into being a soldier and being on the bomb squad. Because, like most military folks, I got in super young. I was 19 when I turned 19 at basic training. So, my entire adult life up to that point had been nothing but, wearing the green suit. And so when I was leaving, it was a big culture shock. The civilian world is very, very different. It has a lot more feelings. Um, so not only that, but our community is incredibly tight. We work on very, very close-knit teams, and losing that is like losing your family. You go from one day you are in it and you have this brotherhood around you all the time, and the next you're not. And it's like having a limb torn off. And equally as painful. So it caused a lot of issues. And through all of this, I kind of developed a panic disorder. So I would I would just be walking around. I can remember one time specifically, I was walking through Walmart after this was after my second deployment with special operations, and I bought a TV, just bought a house, bought a new TV for it, and this guy gave me like the stink eye just randomly, and it just sent me into a spiral, and I had to go home, shut off all the lights, close all the windows, and sit there in the dark for like 2 hours. And that got worse over time. It continued to get more intense. The bouts of panic were longer. So, after a couple months, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. The 45 was looking pretty tasty. I was about to check out because I couldn't, nothing in the normal treatment protocol was helping. The talk therapy was average at best. Now, like being in this industry, I know it was not good. Those clinicians that I interacted with were not sufficiently trained. And the meds, although they would blunt the symptoms a little bit, they wouldn't really make the anxiety go away. It would just make you more sedentary with the panic. So eventually grabbed my 45, I put it in my mouth and I was about ready to pull the trigger. I was like halfway through the trigger pull on my SIG and my phone went off in my pocket. And it was one of my good friends who invited me over to his place. This was Christmas Eve 2014. And like kind of a little background, I grew up super religious. Used to think that everyone who was doing drugs like MDMA was putting holes in their brain. I was drinking the Dare Lions Kool-Aid super hard. And so I got invited over to my buddy's house and he was like, "Hey man, you're fucked up." Grabs a little baggie out of his pocket, poured some pure MDMA out on the table. He's like, "Hey man, you're fucked up. Take what's on that table, sit down on that couch, and tell me what's bothering you." And I did. And I got to feel joy for like the first time in my whole life because I didn't have a great childhood, did not have a good relationship with my parents. Um, and it completely changed my perspective, completely changed the lens by which I saw the world anyway at that time. And it really got me on a new trajectory. I cried my eyes out for like 3 hours, and it literally felt like someone took my soul out of my body and just washed that fucking thing in bleach and stuck it back in. And it to this day remains one of the most important and profound experiences of my life. And how this got started was, I got on the upswing right after that, was ready to get out, ready to go be a contractor, kind of do my own thing and get out of the military. And on Memorial Day in 2015, so 5 months later, I was in the motor pool talking to one of my mentors. He's one of the nicest guys in the unit. And he was one of those senior guys who always had your back, always had an encouraging thing to say. You could always go talk to him. And we're just smoking and joking in the motor pool. We were getting ready for a training exercise that was going to happen on Monday. And that was the last time anybody ever spoke to him. On that Monday when we were all going out for training, walked out into his backyard and blew his head off with his 3-year-old in the house. And it made me really, really angry. Not just at him for making that choice, but at the entire system for failing him. Because I know in my heart that if Neil had had the experience that I had on MDMA on Christmas Eve, he'd still be alive. Um, but we have this kind of, especially in the military, um, at least at the time, it's changing a bit now. But there was just such this aversion and this viewpoint that these drugs were all bad and that they had no clinical value, no value to our troops, no value to us as human beings, and that's just wrong. And yeah, that was what really catapulted me to get into mental health because I had tried everything else. It didn't work. In fact, it made it worse. And then I did this one thing outside of the clinical setting and boom, we're, I had a new perspective and it's been my mission ever since to bring that to other people and to help heal these invisible wounds that the folks in my former line of work suffer with the most.
It's just awful. I feel so sorry for you about going through that, and I can't imagine what that's feeling's like. Um, so kind of, so after you had figured out that you needed to get better, what was kind of the next steps for you? Did you go to any kind of programs? Did you kind of reach out to therapy options? What was kind of the process that you looked into when it came to starting to get better control of your mental health?
Yeah, so the the big thing that I did was go out and try to find alternative protocols that weren't, medication based. And when I say medication, I mean like popping a pill every day. Um,
Mm.
I went out and tried to find places where I could get more effective healthcare, mental health care, and was introduced to ketamine. That was a huge game changer. I didn't really understand how it worked at first, but as I dug into the science more and just read a ton of PubMed, I found out pretty quickly that nobody was talking about inflammation in the brain. And if, I would go in, I would be feeling really shitty, go in for a ketamine infusion, and then for like 6 to 10 weeks, it's like the anxiety monkey, got kicked off my back. And then you slowly start to climb up. I was like, okay, cool. Something about ketamine is making this go away for a relatively short period of time, but then the effect is wearing off. Okay, so now I've got a target. What about ketamine makes it effective at treating major depressive disorder and anxiety? And it turns out uh, the inflammation in your brain that's present in depression, anxiety, PTSD, and traumatic brain injuries isn't really talked about. And that became a huge area of interest and of study for me as we kind of piece together a program because at that point I started a nonprofit and started paying for raising money to pay for veterans to go through these more effective treatments that would hopefully keep them from suicide.
What's been kind of the biggest thing you've learned during this whole journey of, when you went into the program and were trying to get help? What's something that you found has helped you tremendously over the years?
Something that's helped me tremendously over the years is just knowing that all this information is available. What we do here isn't really taught in medical school. And that's really empowering because it means that you don't have to be a doctor to learn this stuff. Everybody's going to the same pool to drink from when it comes to the knowledge of how this stuff works. And so the thing that has been probably the most impactful is just realizing like maybe I don't need to go to medical school. Maybe I can bring people around me and get people to buy into this vision of more effective mental health care. And that stems from being able to go to that pool of knowledge, drink from it, and start to aggregate all of these different studies to show from the research that already exists that this stuff works.
One thing that I find that you're real passionate about is, we hear all the time that brain injuries are a done deal, that the damage is done, that it's really hard to kind of reverse it. Why is it you kind of see that as kind of a wrong statement and as there is a sign that
Oh
brain
yeah.
injuries can be recovered?
It's completely false. You absolutely can heal a brain injury. I've got patients out the wazoo to prove it, and the data from those patients' treatment to prove it. The the reason that people think that brain injuries can't be treated is because you can't really give someone a drug that's going to, at least that I know of, that's going to jumpstart the brain's immune system because we kind of got to take a step back here and really understand what's going on in the brain for a brain injury. So in a brain injury, there's an insult to your neuron. So your neuron gets broken, right? And that neuron breaks apart into these tau proteins. It's what it's made of. So these tau proteins are floating around in the free space around your cells, and that activates your brain's immune response. So your glial cells, your brain's immune system, they have three phases, like three modes, you can think of it. In the first mode, they have a sentinel role. They are like a shepherd. They watch over the neurons and they help them function, and they're also watching out for foreign contaminants or foreign bodies around them. When they see one of those foreign bodies or they see these pieces of cell floating around, they move into their second mode, what's called M1 activation. And they basically go into kill mode. So they pull out their little gun and they start shooting reactive oxygen species. Think like hydrogen peroxide. So they're shooting this hydrogen peroxide and they're trying to kill this foreign contaminant. Once they do, if they have enough energy, they can switch into their third mode, which is they take on what's called a phagocytic role, and they go and they eat and absorb that foreign contaminant. They clean it up, they digest it. If your glial cells do not have enough energy to go to phase three, they get stuck in phase two. So they get stuck in kill mode. They're just kill shotting everything around them and spreading these toxic chemicals throughout the space between your cells, and that kills your neurons. So getting stuck in kill mode, getting stuck in microglial priming is what it's called, is a slow burn that leads to neurodegeneration. It's well documented in the literature. So in order to interdict this process that I just explained, I got a little bit long-winded on, we have to give your cells more energy. We have to allow your glial cells to get into phase three, into mode number three. That requires oxygen because all of our cells run on the same currency. Our cellular gasoline is adenosine triphosphate, ATP. And then we get into like, hey, how is ATP made? So the primary way that it's made is called cellular respiration. That is, think like breathing. It's the Krebs cycle, it's in your mitochondria. The first ingredient's glucose, the last ingredient's oxygen. That's problematic because oxygen is carried throughout your system by your red blood cells. And that's a problem because your red blood cells are kind of big. They and the vessels in your brain, the blood vessels in your brain are pretty damn small. So it doesn't take a whole lot of inflammation before all of a sudden red blood cells can't get through. You're trying to suck a golf ball through a garden hose. Their cells don't die when they can't get oxygen. They have a backup source. So imagine we're like burning natural gas to make ATP with cellular respiration. And when we have to switch over to the secondary method of energy creation, it's called anaerobic glycolysis. That's how cancer cells make energy. It's like a coal fire stove. So imagine this chimney stack is just billowing out smoke. Well, that's happening in all your cells. So your cells are now switching over to this method of energy creation that makes a whole bunch of waste. It makes a whole bunch more inflammation. You can see how this process just cascades. This is why people have that downward slope where they'll be like high functioning, they'll have a TBI, their functioning level will drop, they'll get a little bit better over the course of like 6 months to a year, and then it's like a slow, steady decline. This is why. This is the process that's slowly killing people. This is why people think you can't treat a brain injury. The answer to that is you have to give your cells the energy they need to clean up the mess. And to switch back over from our coal fire stove to our natural gas, to our cellular respiration, make more energy, clean up the mess, get the healing.
What's
Science.
been what's been some kind of what's been the results you've seen from doing this kind of method? How what's the success rate in it?
Yeah, so we don't just use one thing. We layer our treatments in together. And the kind of fundamental principle here is first, take down the inflammatory process. So downregulate inflammation in the brain, and then increase neuroplasticity. So increase the ability of your neurons to branch out and create new connections. Um, and then give your cells more energy because when we're asking our cells to branch out and create new connections, it takes a lot of energy to do that. And then finally, give that neuroplasticity a vector. So we want to tell your neurons where we want them. We got to tell them where to cluster. So we do this with a combination of ketamine infusion therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and transcranial magnetic stimulation, along with culturally competent talk therapy. So we put all these things together, and the success rate is pretty phenomenal. Like we're talking north of 95% response to these treatments put together. What we see on average is patients who are coming in here with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and traumatic brain injuries are reaching symptom remission within 14 to 17 days. And they're, as long as they continue with the protocol, they're for the 45 days that it lasts about 6 weeks currently. They're seeing long-term gains. That's what our patients are experiencing. Um, and furthermore, if we look at some of the neuropsych testing that we do pre and post, what we see is that the average increase in executive function for our PTSD patients is around 40% after 45 days, which is pretty incredible. It's, but our TBI results are even better. We see on average an increase in executive function around 125% in 45 days. Like I just treated well, we just treated a vet um, who had been blown up several times over in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was barely able to function for more than 4 hours a day, and then he would just crash. And was it constantly in a reactive state, in a bad mood, like telling people to fuck off, which is not a great way to run a nonprofit. But over the course of 30 days, we did this whole treatment protocol, and not only did all of his symptoms go away, but his memory, his short-term memory and his complex attention spiked by 80%. So he told me since he got done with the program a month ago, he's read like 15 books. His brain can't stop like absorbing knowledge, which is amazing considering if he tried to open a book beforehand, he would basically fall asleep because he didn't have the energy to take in that information.
What seems to be some things that people tend to get wrong about this treatment plan? And how do you kind of prove to people that it's an actual thing, it's had very
Yeah.
successful outcomes, and what's some just interpretations that people have about this kind of therapy?
The thing that it really depends on who has the hang up. Um, for like the general population, people get scared when we say ketamine. They're like, "Oh no, you're doing a street drug." Like, no, we're using a dissociative anesthetic in a clinical setting that's very, very controlled, and we see awesome outcomes. So people get a little turned off by ketamine. They get scared because it's a dissociative anesthetic, and they're like, "Oh my God, am I going to feel like I'm dying?" Which it's not. It's very floaty. There can be a loss of identity, but if you do it in the right set and setting and you create the right environment, you can make someone feel very, very comfortable while they have that kind of ego dissolution and they're able to process things at a much deeper level when we use these tools together. The other misconception when I'm talking to like VA doctors or sometimes doctors or scientists within the DoD, I hear HBOT doesn't work, hyperbaric doesn't work, which is total bullshit. My response to them is, "Do you know why you think that?" And they say, "Well, that's what the data says." And I was like, "No, that's what a Pentagon memo and 3 studies that were done by the DoD say." And in the 3 studies that have shaped most of these worldviews, here's what happened. So they had a control group. They were all sham control studies. They had a sham group that went down to pressure and just breathed in room air. And then they had a treatment group that went down to pressure and breathed in concentrated oxygen. Both the sham group and the treatment group got better in all 3 studies. And they called it the placebo effect. And I kind of want to take a shovel to someone's head. um, just so I can fix them when I'm done, to prove to them that that's just Henry's law of chemistry. A gas will diffuse into a liquid at a given rate. You increase the pressure on that gas, it'll increase the amount of gas that goes into the liquid. Same thing happens with your bloodstream. So, yeah, everyone got better because you did a medical procedure on everyone. So those are the big misconceptions, but for the most part, once I tell people about this, they're usually fairly supportive. I'd say the biggest like hurdle for a lot of people is the time. It takes time to do this. It takes 6 weeks, currently. We could compress that a little bit, but there's other forces that make it so that it's that way.
I'm kind of glad that you had brought up the point about doctors because one of my follow-up questions was, what's general doctors' consensus on it? Do they believe in it? Do they think it, like you said, they think it's bullshit and they try to put all this stuff in your head? Or is it kind of like half and half on, some believe it, some
I
don't?
mean, saying the words doctor and consensus in the same sentence, like, kind of isn't a thing. If you lined up 10 doctors and asked their opinion without letting them cite any resources, you probably get 5 to 6 different answers on any given topic. Um,
Mm.
for the most part, the physicians that I speak to, I just show them the results. I'm like, cool, dude, tell me this is the placebo effect. I dare you. To let me show you that the depression, anxiety, and PTSD scores are all simultaneously precipitously dropping and staying down. you can you can try to fight me on that and say it's the placebo effect, but then I'm gonna grab my science bat and I'm gonna start swinging because at the end of the day, I feel like everyone in the medical field innately understands that inflammation, especially chronic inflammation, is harmful to the human body. And I don't think that any physician worth their medical degree would ever argue the opposite, that chronic inflammation is good for you somehow. So I always try to start from there, start from a place of mutual understanding where we're both on the same playing field, and then get into the stuff that they might not be familiar with. Because typically, it's not a matter of like that is bad. It's almost always, oh, I'm not as educated as I could be on that topic because my focus in, psychiatry is here, or my focus in functional medicine is here. And when you bring all these things together, that they're like, oh, well, I could understand why that would work.
Where do you kind of, what do you hope to see in the future how this kind of therapy is kind of perceived as? Do you see it kind of getting more popularized? Do you see it becoming more accepting to the general public, or what's your hopes for this kind of therapy for the future?
Yeah, yeah. My hope for this therapeutic approach, we call it the Inner Armor program, here at Mind Spa. My hope for this approach is that we change the way that mental health is treated in this country. Uh, there is just far too much wasted time and wasted effort on shit that doesn't address the underlying neurobiology of the condition. And it is my hope that we can use the data and the stories of these people who are getting miraculously better to fuel a new movement in psychiatry that is parallel to the psychedelics movement, because these things can be used in conjunction with one another to get even better results. So, um, I'm very hopeful that we can create a movement around this, and I see it starting to happen slowly.
Have you seen if therapists are supportive of this, if they've had clients come to them and they maybe recommend this to a therapist, do they kind of support it as well? Do they tend to be a little bit more on board with it?
Yeah, therapists are overwhelmingly on board with this approach because therapists, and I'm kind of painting the whole house one color here, but the therapists that we work with, they understand when they've gotten to a wall with a patient, and they're not they can try as they might, but they're just making these tiny, like, baby steps forward with a client that they really, really want to help, that really, really needs it, but
Mm.
they're just not able to break through those walls. And sometimes people just aren't able to break through their own walls. That's what it is 9 times out of 10. So the therapists that have seen this work are incredibly supportive, and the ones that haven't are almost always super interested in it for their patients so that they have something to look to if they're stuck in a spot with a patient who's having a really hard time.
At Mind Spa, tell me a little bit about how kind of the program at Mind Spa works, like kind of what the sign up process is, the actual treatment, and the ending treatment. Kind of, if you could give like a little overview about how the whole process
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, so the process is really easy. You just go to our website, mindspadenver.com, fill out the new patient forms, then our staff contacts you, gets you an appointment with our psychiatric team. We can also plug you directly into the therapy team. And then based on that appointment, based on that first intake, we do a full psych workup. Make sure that nothing that we do is going to hurt you because there are contraindications for everything. Um, and then based on each patient, a treatment plan is prescribed, and that treatment plan could include everything. We could be doing TMS, ketamine, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and talk therapy at the same time, as well as medication management, which is another thing we kind of have to do to check the box. But it's really put together in a way where the treatment plan is tailored to the patient. One of our more popular programs is our TRICARE program. So with our TRICARE program, a patient who has TRICARE, and that's military veterans who've done 20 years and retired, military veterans who have been medically discharged, active duty, reserve, National Guard, and their family members. If they have if they have TRICARE, then they come in. If they qualify for transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is it takes 3 failed antidepressant medications to qualify, then we give them the ketamine for free if they want to do it, and we give them the hyperbaric for free if they want to do it. They're still responsible for their copay for the TMS, but they're basically getting $20,000 plus of treatment for like 1,800 bucks.
One thing that, I think some people could find problematic with that is, ketamine is seen as a kind of a street drug, or that's what they consume as. Is there a process to where you can kind of mitigate from people that are coming there to have it for a treatment compared to people coming there just to get free drugs?
Oh yeah, I mean it's one of the reasons we work so closely with the veteran first responder community because nobody's making up their trauma. They've all got it, and that's what the intake process is for. We have everybody meet not only with the psychiatric team but with our nurse beforehand, and we're very sensitive to drug-seeking behavior. Honestly, we don't really see it. People are coming here to do the work, and we're very upfront about that. Like don't come here just because we have a cool ketamine experience, which we do. That's not what this is for. This is for people who have trauma, are struggling, and want to heal. And if that's not you, then you're not our patient.
Well, that I think that is kind of surprising that every person that's come there has actually came there for help and not just for free drugs. I think that's kind of a good thing to go by. Um, do you, from the people and clients that have gone through the whole program, are there any stories that you can share on here that have been really
Yeah.
successful that you can publicly share with my audience?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this was one of the first patients we ever treated as a friend of mine named Rich, and I have his permission to tell his story. Um, he have you ever met anybody that's like fallen off the trauma tree and hit every single branch on the way down with their face? Like this was that guy. uh, Grew up in an impoverished, broken home to a former boxer with a severe traumatic brain injury who was super abusive. His mom was a prostitute and would regularly have guys over, sleep with them to get drugs, was a heroin addict. Um, Grew up with his twin brother in Oregon, jumping around the foster system. His twin brother got into drugs, ended up in jail. Um, he was lucky enough to join the Marine Corps. He gets into the Marine Corps. He finally finds his people, right? Gets into force reconnaissance. So, in a sniper blind, doing recon. Um, Finally gets that cohesive brotherhood family that he was looking for his entire life. And then they get deployed to Iraq. He ends up in the Battle of Fallujah, kicking in doors with his squad. His On one particular day, they were clearing compounds. His best friend Mike, who was a squad leader, was the lead man, so he's in charge of kicking the door. Rich was second man. They kicked in a door to a pretty large compound, and there were 17 or 18 Al Qaeda insurgents pointing machine guns at that door, and AKs, all kinds of small arms. Uh, his best friend Mike lived just long enough after he kicked in the door and realized that they were walking into an ambush to turn around and push Rich out the door, then stepped back into the room while under fire and ran on the inside of the wall to the other side of the room so he could soak up the rounds for the rest of the squad. Rich caught a bullet during that. He got hit by a couple grenades and an RPG. And then they leveled the building and killed everybody. But he lost his best friend right in front of him. And, that along with having a very, very toxic marriage nearly broke him. Like when I met him a couple years after this, the events that I just spoke of, shell of a man. Um, was you could just see the pain in his eyes all the time, and was self-medicating with drugs and alcohol. Would hide behind a smile, but like really was suffering, wasn't employed, was living off his disability. And we put him through a 30-day protocol that contained ketamine, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and TMS. And in within that within that 30 days, we increased his executive functioning by 50%. We got all of his symptoms were gone within 2 weeks. Um, Now, and this was almost 2 years ago. Um, since then, he's completely turned his life around. He, you know, divorced himself from his previous relationship, which was a good thing. Um, got a new group of friends, moved to a different state. Now he lives here in Colorado on the the backside of Pikes Peak on a horse ranch with a new wife who is way out of his league, and he works in telecom making good money. So he was able to completely turn his life around. He just needed a hand up, and that's what this is meant to do. You know, all of these treatments are awesome. They can help heal the brain, but like something I do want to impress upon people is like we can heal your brain all you want, but you also got to do the work. And he did, and that story is not unique. We've done, we've treated hundreds of vets and first responders, and we hear stories about this. We see them every day, so that's a solid one.
Well, congratulations to him. I mean, to be able to really be at rock bottom to where it's like the deepest of holes where you can't get out, and to be able to change his life around so quickly and so happily. It it kind of just goes to show how well the program works. I would clap, but that would mess up the audio, so I have to do like this weird clapping that people with their forefinger and thumb that I don't get. So we'll just do that for so I don't blast people with my claps. But um a huge congratulations to him. And that's such a really remarkable story and a good turnaround of and really inspirational too of showing and having people hear that because as you said it's not really a unique story because multiple military men might go through that. I just know that it would be a huge inspiration to them to show that there is a chance that you can change your life around and get the help that you need to where you can go on and live a very successful life. What are some future plans and bucket list items that you would like to do for Mind Spa? Are you thinking about maybe expanding it to across the United States, worldwide? What's some kind of dream goals that you would
Yeah.
like to happen?
Yeah, yeah, currently we have the one facility here. We got a 3,500 square foot facility right now. I'm looking at expanding that to over 5,000 square feet here shortly. And then as far as like plans for the future, my plan is that we're going to expand to multiple states. My next target's Colorado Springs. And then from there, branch out and put one of these in just about every major city, everywhere that has, a fire department, police department, and a veteran population that needs this. I want this to be available. And, even if it's not through us, like I want this treatment protocol to catch fire because like there's no way we could even that any one company could treat all the individuals who are suffering. I believe that it takes a team, a group, and a movement to make this change. So more than anything, aside from expanding the the reach of our clinical footprints, I want this concept to catch on of treating the underlying root cause of these issues so people, one, get better faster, and two, and even more importantly, stay better longer.
Kind of a little wrap up question, but from the clients that have been through, have you heard, do you still stay in contact with any of the clients that you've helped? And do they kind of check in with you and give you updates of their progress since leaving the facility?
Oh yeah. Oh, tons of them. One in particular is a um, was one of the guys that I was in the bomb technician units with. He got blown up. It was probably he had an improvised explosive device go off about like 2 meters away from him. The only reason he survived is because the green beret in front of him ate like soaked up all the frag. Um, he was walking through life like a ghost. Like you would think he was drunk all the time because his TBI was so bad. Um, in 45 days, we increased his executive functioning by 150%. And now, now again, over a year later, new job. He just had a second kid. His last time I saw him a couple weeks ago, his wife cries every time she sees me and thanks me for giving her husband back. And it's the same thing, with him. He realizes where he was and where he is now, and like the sky's the limit for these guys once they can get out of the hole. And it's not that hard to do.
If people are listening to this and if they think that if they have someone that they know or they personally have been in the military and suffer from mental health struggles and they would like to try this kind of therapy out, um, how can people get in contact with you and maybe, um, excuse me, have the opportunity or chance to maybe try the session out?
Yeah, the easiest way is go check out our website, mindspadenver.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn is the platform I'm the most responsive on, Sam J. Peterson. Just look me up and it'll pop my headshot right up. Those are the easiest ways to get in contact with us. We also have a Facebook and an Instagram page, mine's at MindSpotDenver. That those are the easiest ways to get in contact with us. And people also need to understand that like there these resources exist. You can get ketamine in just about every single major city. There's at least one ketamine clinic. Um, and typically within that ketamine clinic, they're going to do TMS. We're just the first ones to bring all of this stuff into a cohesive package. But even if you can't get to us, just know that there's hope. Like there are things that work. You probably haven't heard of them, and and all you have to do is take a couple of the concepts that we've talked about here today and Google them. You'll find this information pretty quickly, and you'll be able to find resources, possibly in your backyard, that can help you.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing this kind of therapy with my audience, and congrats to you on everything that you've achieved. And I should have said this earlier, but thank you for what you did in the army. Thank you for your service, about what you did.
Yeah.
Uh, So appreciative of that, and I know everyone else is too. I'll put all the links in the description box below about the website where you can go if you are interested in wanting to maybe do treatment with him, or if you just have questions, I'll put all of his links. I'll make sure to put links to his LinkedIn on there as well, so that it's easy access and for you guys to find, so you don't go strung all over the internet finding it. Feel free to follow me on social media as well. Instagram and TikTok, Lethal Venom Podcast on there, and then Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, Noah's Podcast, and then also follow Lethal Venom wherever you get podcasts from. I'm on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora, among other platforms as well. So feel free to check it out and subscribe so you get notified of when new episodes drop. Thank you to everyone for tuning in today. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Be safe, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of Lethal Venom.